Denise, Denise, it's Denise, it's Denise, it's Denise, Denise, it's a podcast party, it's a podcast party, it's a podcast party.
I gotta say, I feel like we're besties now after this. What's up, guys? It's Denise Salcedo. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Speak Now Pro Wrestling, a very special Thursday edition. We are going to be chatting AEW Full Gear predictions here today, but it's not just me, and I'm very happy, very excited because for the first time ever, myself and Lance Storm are doing a show here on F4W. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lance Storm. What's up, Lance?
You should have told me it was a podcast party because it's very, very well known that I don't do parties. I'm not the partying type.
So I pressed play on the intro and I started to think to myself, maybe I should have warned Lance a little bit about how this was going to be a whole, big little intro song, because I just told you we're going to play an intro and we're going to get right into the show. And I kind of feel like I didn't give you enough information.
Shock value is always good.
It definitely is. But Lance, first and foremost, I want to thank you so much for saying yes to do the show with me. When I reached out to you, I was kind of debating for a bit. I was like, is Lance going to say yes or is he going to say no? All right, well, I'm never going to know if I don't ask. So when I asked you and you said yes, I was very excited because obviously I've been a fan of yours for a very long time. And now that I've gotten this opportunity, very excited to talk about the show today.
Yeah, I've been home a long time, so my availability is fairly clear. So it's good. Actually, I did a podcast with a buddy of mine about a scripted podcast that he does yesterday, and then I've got the show with Brian tomorrow, so this fits in perfectly.
Good. I'm so glad we were able to make it work. So for those of you who are in the chat, like I mentioned, we're going to be talking about AEW Full Gear. We got so many matches to get into, so we're going to talk about all of those. But if you are here in the chat, friendly reminder that this is a very interactive show. You are more than welcome to send in your thoughts, and every now and then I'm going to pop some in and I'll read some on here on the air. If you want to make sure your comment, your question, or your statement gets read on this show, you can go ahead and send in a super chat, and that will guarantee that your question gets read on the air. But let's go ahead and jump right into the show. So Lance, we're going to go ahead and kick it off with maybe some of, we'll work our way into like the bigger matches, but we're going to kick things off. So we have 10 matches, and that includes the pre-show, the buy-in match, which was Nyla Rose and Jamie Hager versus Hikaru Shida and Thunder Rosa. However, I kind of want to focus right now on the actual main card. So we'll go ahead and start there. So the first match that we're going to go ahead and talk about right now is Pac and Cody Rhodes versus Malachi Black and Andrade El Idolo. This was a match that was essentially made last night on Dynamite, and we kind of knew we were about to get this match, but they officially made it official. So with that being said, Lance, how do you feel about how they brought this match together, given the fact that we've been seeing Cody Rhodes and Malachi, have their own feud? They've wrestled now, I think, 3 times? And then same thing with Andrade and Pac. These are guys that have wrestled now, I believe, twice. So how do you feel about the build-up to this match?
I really like it, and I think I like it because I'm a fan of variety. And AEW traditionally doesn't do rematches. And I think at times it's nice to have them. So the fact that we've gotten Cody and Malachi, as well as Andrade El Idolo and Pac having a couple of matches, and now we're coming to the tag, it's nice that it feels like we're in more of a quote unquote program, but it's still a different match. And I'm a fan of all 4 guys as being really talented too. So I think it's a win-win, because you don't just want constant singles matches, but they gave us a reason for this tag, and I'm really looking forward to it.
How did you feel about the fact that we got to see Cody and Malachi Black so many times, especially the third time? It kind of felt a little bit rushed that they went into that match. Were you at all like kind of thinking like maybe they should have pushed it a little bit more, or were you glad given the way that it's turned out into this tag team match at Full Gear?
I would say glad. Because again, maybe it's the fact that I'm older too. My memory isn't as good as it probably should be. So it's nice to keep things fresh and keep things hot. And I think there's there's an emotional investment into Black and Cody, not just because of the match and the angle, but also because of the popularity or lack thereof of Cody Rhodes as a babyface. So there's layers to it, the intended layers and the unintended one. So it's nice to stay with that. So we see where this ends up.
And that's the thing that I wanted to get at too, because unfortunately, it looks like, they were trying to tell the story of this baby face character with Cody Rhodes. Just a couple of weeks ago, he's going out, in front of the audience. He's telling the people that he loves them, etc. And the man is getting booed. It's not very often that you see a guy going out there telling the people that he loves them and like half the audience is booing. So do you think that they have made the right direction or made the right choice in keeping Cody Rhodes as a babyface versus really, really pushing forward the agenda that he might work better as an actual heel?
I'm not convinced that we know the intention and the direction. When Cody started this, my first gut instinct is, okay, he is turning heel, and the heat to it will be his promise to not. And that's something too that again dates back to the Jericho match. That the I will never challenge for this championship again was a promise by Cody, not an actual stip. And I think this lays the groundwork for if Cody turns heel, we've established he's not a man of his word because he promised he never would. Well, there's another promise he never would. And I think it lays a lot of groundwork for future legitimate heat of, you bastard, you're not a man of your word. You stood there and told us you were, and you weren't.
Well, now it makes sense that he's teaming up with the bastard Pac in terms of him maybe going back on his word. So, Lance, with all of this being said, who do you think should go ahead and actually win this match? Should it be Pac and Cody, or do you think that they should keep Malachi Black and Andrade strong and have them defeat Pac and Cody?
It depends a little bit on their final direction with Cody. I think if they want him to be a babyface, I think Black needs to beat him.
Okay.
Because I think part of the backlash to Cody is Malachi is so cool and so fresh. I think Cody getting that win upset a lot of people.
I think so too. I feel like personally, as somebody that's been like, damn it, just push Cody, just make Cody a heel, make him a heel. I think it's working in the sense that it's getting under my skin. So I'm pretty sure it's getting under a bunch of other people's skin as well. So in that sense, like I get wanting to have Pac and Cody actually win this match, but I kind of just want them to really build up Malachi Black and Andrade so much more. Like my whole thing with Cody Rhodes and Malachi Black was I didn't want Cody Rhodes to beat Malachi Black. I wanted Malachi Black to essentially be that guy that Cody Rhodes could never be. Like, yeah, he's gotten, Cody Rhodes is Cody Rhodes and he's gotten wins against, all of these people. But Malachi Black could be like that one guy that he just can't defeat. I like that story. So for me, that's why I was a little bit bothered when we went into this third match and when we got the outcome of the third match, because I always wanted for Cody Rhodes to kind of be like, all right, I can't beat Malachi Black. And, this is a story that, in the future, they could have definitely gone back to and eventually down the line, maybe have Cody Rhodes beat Malachi Black. But I think I would have liked that story to be told.
Yeah. And I think too, because Black is so fresh and Cody's really his first program, I think a lot of people want, and think he should, and I agree that Black should win his first program. And I think a win on Saturday over Cody gives him the chance to feel like he got the last laugh, so to speak, which I think really helps Black moving forward. And not to spoil the ahead of our show, it's like I'm leaning towards coming out of the show with a babyface world champion. I think some strong heels, Malachi Black being a great one, is a good thing to have in your back pocket.
Really good thing to have. So we kind of went over that match. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the next match that we're going to go ahead and talk about because we got so much. Like they really pack up these shows.
This
So
is
the
a
next
stacked
match.
pay-per-view.
Yeah, it really is. So the next match that we're going to go ahead and get into is the Falls Count Anywhere match between Christian Cage and Jurassic Express against the Superkliq, the team of Adam Cole and the Young Bucks. So kind of kicking things off here, Lance, how do you feel heading into the match? And I kind of also want to get your thoughts on how you think the presentation of Adam Cole has been thus far on AEW.
I would prefer now. This is should surprise nobody. I tend to like more serious heels, and I preferred the personality Adam Cole projected in NXT better. In that he felt more like a serious threat, where he feels like, and again, those who know the history of the Superkliq better probably dig it, but I don't know that history. So to me, it's just like it's the reuniting with friends. They're just screwing around, having fun, which isn't my taste. So I would prefer a harder edge to Cole, which they can still get to. Obviously in the ring, the three of them are freaking incredible, and I have no doubt this match will be fantastic. And it's actually one of the ones I'm really at a loss for picking a winner, in that you don't want the Superkliq and the Elite taking too many losses, but Jungle Boy could be due. And if it wasn't for that really strong segment on Dynamite where they concertoed Cole and Jungle Boy got the snare trap on him, I'd have thought for sure that the big win for Jungle Boy will be the pay-per-view, but they gave him so much there. Now I'm not sure. And this is one of those matches that to me, it's flip a coin, and I'm going to flip it and pick Super Elite.
See, I think
Superkliq,
like
rather.
you said, like they can kind of go either direction here. And that's my thing. Like one of the things that we've been noticing leading up into this match is that I kind of feel like Jungle Boy has been showing a little bit more of an edge. Like he's going out there by himself, knowing that his friends weren't there like a couple weeks ago and calling out the Elite. And obviously that didn't necessarily end up very well for him, but we are seeing like this new side of Jungle Boy, which I feel like I'm a fan of. But in terms of, I know you're going with the, with the Superkliq because for the reasons that you stated, but I almost feel like Christian Cage and Jurassic Express, they really need to get their revenge on these guys for, the attack that they did on them. So I'm going to lean the other direction and actually go with Jurassic Express and Christian Cage.
Okay, one bold prediction that just hit me while you were talking.
What is it?
Christian's turning on Jungle Boy Saturday.
And they've been teasing that, but do you think they're pulling the
teasing
plug?
that, and I don't know whether it was intentional or not. It was the first time I've noticed it. Last night, Jungle Boy come out and did the Christian thing to the crowd, and I could see Christian being annoyed that Jungle Boy is the front of the graphic and the leader of this six-man when Christian is in fact senior man. And I think Christian Jungle Boy, A, would be fantastic. B, would be a tremendous learning experience for JB. And it would also be a great singles program win for Jungle Boy at the end of it. I think there's a lot of win-win we're here with Superkliq picking up the win. Great angle for Jungle Boy and Christian. That's where I'm going.
See, and they've been teasing that kind of like they were teasing it a little bit more in the beginning when you first started to see this friendship culminate between Christian Cage and Jungle Boy. When they first started, being, an item, as friends and all of that, they were teasing that. They were teasing that, hey, there's a big possibility that Christian Cage is going to eventually turn on Jungle Boy. And I kind of felt like they put a little bit of pause on that, and we didn't really see that for a bit. But then you mentioned this, past week, this week on Dynamite, and I actually did not catch that with, maybe Christian Cage being a little bit, intimidated. So that's not intimidated, but maybe a little irritated with Jungle Boy. So I don't know if they're essentially going to pull the plug at Full Gear, because I'll talk about this down the line, but there's another possible prediction in terms of a turn and who can turn on who later on in another story. So with that being said, I think this would be a good way to, like you said, get the Superkliq to get this get the win in this match. If you have Christian Cage turn on Jungle Boy and that causing, friction and then to lose the match, it's a good way, but I'm not so sure that they're going to actually do it at Full Gear.
Well, there could always be the circumstance where Christian does cost him the loss, and was it intentional or wasn't, and you could still do the official turn. Like it's one of the things I really like about Dynamite is that it's booked like a pro wrestling show, and it's not just this or that. It's the stream and the course that you can do it. That's where I always too, I talk about back in the day when they called the booker the pencil. There's a reason for that, because you don't do it in ink, because you want to be able to erase and adjust. And there's a lot of possibilities going into this show.
I think that's a really good analogy too, because if you recall with Tony Khan's spoilers and his leaks that were put out there today in the media call, he did mention like, hey, I obviously, made some changes, switch things around. And so it kind of reminded me of that. But we're going to go ahead and jump into the next match here. And next up is one of the ones that personally, Lance, I'm really looking forward to, mainly because of the story that they've been telling here. And that is Darby Allin and MJF. Now, these are two guys that are both coming out of a loss. They both took L's at the AEW All Out event. So I'm kind of a little bit torn here, and I don't really know what the right direction is. But first and foremost, how do you feel about the story that they've been telling with Darby and MJF? And who do you think should really walk out here with the win?
Easy question. I love the way it's been built. And I think MJF is a great foil for Darby because he can carry the mic work. MJF, just point a camera at him, give him a microphone. Everyone will hate him and want to kill him. It's the no-brainer. MJF can talk and make people hate him. But as far as, who should pick it up in this one, it's like, I'm torn. And that's the thing with them both coming off a loss from a program, both of them obviously being a big future. It's tough. And there's two ways to go. Again, if there's a babyface champion in our future, then MJF makes sense. But I think, and this is something that I always, even as a heel performer, when in doubt, protect your face. Baby faces are who make people come. You have to have faith and emotional investment in your baby faces. So unless there is a clear cut, no, we need this heel for this reason, I tend to go protect your baby faces. And Darby has been a home run for them, I think, as a baby face. And I think you want to protect that because MJF, 3 minutes in a microphone, he can get his heat back.
Exactly. And I was going to go the different direction. So you actually made me change my mind here because I was going to go with MJF because I thought, you know what? I really think that after that whole long story that they told with him and Chris Jericho, I was the person that really felt that MJF should have defeated Chris Jericho. I thought that was the right way to go. They didn't go that direction. Cool, whatever. So I almost feel like there needs to be some sort of reward for MJF. But right now, when you mention, when in doubt, protect your face. Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense because Darby Allin is probably, maybe aside from Orange Cassidy, is one of the coolest guys that when you go out and you look at somebody who you think is going to appeal to, young audiences, your teenagers, etc. It's definitely guys like Darby Allin and Orange Cassidy. So with Darby Allin, like he had to essentially, he got a big win by being put in that all-out match with CM Punk, his first big match, his first match coming back, to pro wrestling after 7 years. So that was a big win within itself. So we kind of already knew that he was going to be taking the loss there because you want to have CM Punk win that match. But they did so much to build Darby Allin that I don't necessarily want to see him take 2 losses in a row because of everything that they did, with him as TNT champion, with him leading into this match with CM Punk, and now this match with MJF. And you're right, MJF, yeah, he should be getting some wins, but at the end of the day, no matter what, he is going to get his heat back with his promos because those are obviously very good. And personally, for me, that's why I'm more so interested in this match is because consistently, I think MJF has been having the best segments each and every single week, week in and week out on Dynamite and or Rampage, whatever show he's on.
Yeah, we will see Saturday.
So, all right. So I think we're in agreement there with Darby Allin. So let's go ahead and jump into our next match here. This one I think is definitely going to be a fun one, that's for sure. And we got the AEW World Tag Team Championship belts on the line. The Lucha Brothers, your champions, defending up the belts against FTR. So I feel like this one's a no-brainer, but Lance Storm, is there a chance that you think that the titles are going to switch hands here?
I think there's always a chance. And I would say that with Fenix and Penta, there's always the chance that one of them is hurt. So there's always that chance that we really need to get the belts off these guys. One of them has just killed themselves recently. And I'm a huge FTR fan. Like, they are what I like with tag team wrestling. Like, I just love the detail that those guys put in. They're absolutely 100% my cup of tea, even though I don't drink tea. So I guess they're my cup of coffee. So they're who I would go with, but I do suspect the Lucha Bros will retain. But I think there's always that shot because those guys almost kill themselves almost all the time.
Yeah, they seriously do. And this is a match that I'm really looking forward to in terms, and it's funny because you mentioned that FTR is like more your team. I'm polar opposite where my team is definitely the Lucha Brothers. Like, that is the style that I tend to gravitate towards. I'm a big fan of the Lucha Brothers, and personally, like, being at that AEW All Out event, and when the Lucha Brothers won the championship, I like, if they didn't have those big, reveals with Bryan Danielson and with Adam Cole, that reaction to the Lucha Brothers winning, I don't know if I realized just how massive that reaction was going to be. Like, you can feel in the arena, you could feel the floor trembling when they won because people were so excited about it. But that's the thing. So for me, I would honestly, I would be upset if the Lucha Brothers lost this match. I would be so mad because I want to see, there's still so many dream matches that I have with the Lucha Brothers. And, we're always talking about the Forbidden Door. There's so many matches that I hope we eventually get to see down the line, because one of the things that we're constantly talking about is how stacked that AEW tag team division is. So I don't want to see the Lucha Brothers lose, especially when FTR has already had this long title reign. And I personally was not even a fan of them winning the AAA tag team belts. Like, I wasn't a fan of it personally.
Yeah, I think the Lucha Brothers are very, very popular, and I think there was a large portion of the fan base that was disappointed that the tag division was so deep that it took them so long to get where a lot of fans thought they should be. So I do think it's way too soon to take it off them, and I expect them to retain. And, that's my expectation, and I'm absolutely perfectly fine with that. They're a great, exciting team.
Yeah.
But there's always that spot in my heart for the FTR guys.
Yeah, definitely. And I like also seeing that. I like seeing, Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler essentially get these opportunities to have more singles matches, like the one we just saw, this past week on Dynamite. So for me, I feel like you can also utilize FTR in different ways. And then it's the same thing with the Lucha Brothers, right? When they weren't tag team champions, they were in singles matches and all of that. That's perfectly fine. But I would legitimately be upset if the Lucha Brothers lose. So I will riot. Everybody will riot. All right. But let's go ahead and jump into our next match here. And this is the one that I'm pretty interested in your thoughts, Lance, because when I review Dynamite each and every single week, I feel like for the most part, my review is pretty positive. But this next segment, or this next match that we're going to be talking about, I'm not always very positive on this one because I haven't really been in love with the story. But here we go. The match that I am talking about here is the Minneapolis Street Fight. And this is the Inner Circle taking on Scorpio Sky, Ethan Page, and American Top Team members, Junior Dos Santos, Andre Arlovski, and Dan Lambert here. I first want to start off with, how have you been feeling in terms of the promo work, the storylines, and everything, the in-ring action that we've been seeing out of all of these guys? What are your thoughts on it?
I've really enjoyed it. I just consider this I want to say pro wrestling part of it, but it's not the wrestling part of it, but it is the show of the pro wrestling part that I like. I don't want to call it sports entertainment because I hate the term. But The heat Dan Lambert has been getting has been tremendous. And it reminiscent of, again, Jim Cornette, Paul Heyman back when I was a fan, that loudmouth, amazing talker heel that you just want to see get murdered, but he's always behind his guys. And while the match where, if you win, you get 5 minutes with Paul Heyman, or heaven forbid they do the multi-team thing with Paul Heyman actually in the match, while obviously the work rate, goes in the dumper, when that guy eventually gets in, it's so fun. So I've liked this angle and this story, and I love I think he's like the best non-wrestling performer right now. So I'm excited about it in that regard. And this is too, I mentioned it on my show with Brian, in that it's perfect pro wrestling, in my opinion, in that they created a scenario that I just want to see Dan Lambert get murdered.
Yeah, that's true.
And they're advertising a match where I fully believe he's going to get murdered. So I'm going to buy the show and watch it. And I have 100% faith in them that they're going to let me see Dan Lambert get murdered.
We
And
got it, right?
I don't know how many stars it's going to get. I don't care. Give it a negative 1 million stars. As long as you see Dan Lambert run his mouth and get murdered, I'll be happy. There's enough great wrestling on the rest of the show. This is my entertainment segment. And I fully believe we will see Dan Lambert get murdered, and I'll be very, very happy.
Like they say, there's something, see, that's the thing. Like, while I'm sitting here saying this one isn't really for me, this is probably the one that I'm least interested in, when I'm looking at the entire card. At the end of the day, I think that's the one thing that has been working for AEW, is that they put something different on their shows. A lot of different stuff that are going to appeal to different people. Like, I'm sure if you ask, everybody, watching this show, hey, what match are you most looking forward to? Everybody's going to have a different answer, because people gravitate towards different things. So with that being said, there have been things that I've liked with the Inner Circle and American Top Team. Like, there's been some lines where I'm like, okay, that's funny. Haha. Jericho and Paige, going off on the mic. That always worked for me. Dan Lambert. I love Dan Lambert. He's actually been, for me, one of the bright spots in all of this, because he does get this insane amount of heat, because a lot of the stuff that he says is just hilarious. It's hilarious. And there are people out there that legitimately do not like him because, he's worked them or whatever. But for me, though, I just feel like I haven't managed to get fully invested in this storyline. So even though I'm a fan of Dan Lambert, and I'm a fan of the Inner Circle, everything else for me has kind of been a cluster, where I'm thinking, like, every week on Dynamite, I'm thinking, what are they going to do this week? Like, I'm looking forward to the funny lines and the promos. I'm looking forward to that type of stuff, but everything else I'm not necessarily like completely fond of. Like when Dan Lambert was putting the walls of Jericho on Jericho, and he, power slammed him through the table. I just thought it was too goofy for me to where I couldn't necessarily really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's fair. But I think too, and again, there's only so much they can do, because obviously he can't get physical.
Yeah.
But I think too, that's an important spot on the card, because you're going to have a lot of exciting, multiple near falls, incredible action matches. And it's like, I don't want you to put in a buffer match that's just unimportant, but this is going to be to, throw in my Monty Python fandom, and now for something completely different. And it's going to be nice to see whichever, Superkliq with Jungle Boy and Christian is going to be this amazing action-packed thing. The Cody Malachi Pac tag was going to be absolutely amazing. And it's like, just give me the emotional investment match that isn't going to be the thrill ride. And then I can go back, and actually the main event will be both an emotional ride as well as an action-packed one. So I think it's an important match to have on this card. And again, it's one that I'm not going to watch with my brain. I'm going to watch with my heart.
That's a good way. That's a good way of looking at it. Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and jump into one that I feel like after the promo work that we saw, I feel like my heart is definitely invested in this one. And I think everybody kind of knows where I'm getting at. And that is CM Punk versus Eddie Kingston. two dudes that are tremendously adored by the fans. And now I think people are going to be torn here because you got Eddie Kingston, who is this badass guy who, has had his set of troubles, but has, overcome them. And look at where he's at now. And then CM Punk, man, just a fan favorite. So you got both of these guys that are loved for different reasons, and they got beef with each other. Lance, I want to start off by asking you what your thoughts were on that promo that Eddie Kingston and CM Punk did just recently.
I really liked it, although it pales in comparison to the video package that Kingston tweeted out a couple of days ago. I'm assuming it'll be part of the countdown show that they do. But it was great and this is where I think both guys have their strength is I believe when they talk. I believe they're saying what they thought of in their own heads and what they feel in their own hearts. And it goes back to the old David Allen co-song that Mick Foley and Les Thatcher always promote that sums up pro wrestling. And it's like the one line it is boy, can you make folks feel what you feel inside? And you can feel the animosity and you can feel the tension. And it's always great when there's probably, again, they could have just the greatest respect for each other, but there's probably a little something there too. And it came across and it's like, I have no idea what to expect from this match, but I believe both men have a chip on their shoulder. And to me, as both a dude who's had a chip on his shoulder and a competitive athlete, it's like, that's what I want out of sport. Two guys that really feel like there's something to prove here. And I'm really looking forward to it in that regard. And I've always been a big fan of Punk's. And since his run in AEW, because I didn't watch a ton of indies, so Eddie Kingston was a nobody to me for the most part. Like I knew who he was, but I really no idea until he did that debut. And I remember some fan asked me what I thought, because there was always the criticisms of his physique. And as a dude who's always been in top shape and that they asked me, it's like, what do you think? And it's like, to me in pro wrestling, you can be a top athlete or you can just be a tough son of a bitch. Both work. And it's like, do not try to convince me that Eddie Kingston is a highly trained, top-notch athlete, because I won't buy that. But I will buy that this is a tough son of a bitch who's been in a lot of fights in his life and can kick somebody's ass. And it's like, that works for me. And his promos are great. So I don't need to believe Eddie Kingston could compete in the Olympics. I don't. But I believe if he's just going to get in a fight with somebody, he's going to kick ass. So it's like, I like Kingston. I've become a big fan of his since AEW. And again, this is a really good emotional conflict, which to me is a win.
I thought they took me on a roller coaster. I thought they took the people on a roller coaster. It was one of those situations where the second, as I was watching the promo unfold, I just thought, oh man, like this is just getting better and better. Because for me, what really, and I think you just touched on right now, is the realism. When it feels legitimate and not just that, both guys are, it's more than both guys believing in what they're saying, but it's the way that they interact and the legitimacy that it brings to pro wrestling and that it brings to this story. There are so many times where we see a lot of goofy things, or, sometimes you see people, act tough, but you're not really sensing that they are tough. And I don't get that whatsoever with Eddie Kingston. Like, I buy legitimately everything that he says. And I thought for a second, and this was one of the things that I was talking about on my post show, was that I thought Eddie Kingston was gonna kind of, both CM Punk and Eddie are good on the mic, right? They both bring something different to the table when it comes to mic work. But I did think that Eddie Kingston was gonna, sort of outshine CM Punk when this whole thing started. But I thought that CM Punk really held his own, and they both held their own during this promo work. But so that for me is what really got me emotionally invested into this story. Like, I was interested in this, like when they started, basically telling the story. I was interested in just because, okay, I'm a fan of Eddie Kingston and I'm a big fan of CM Punk. Cool. But it really wasn't until that promo, which now I'm saying is like the best promo that I've seen, or one of the best promos. It wasn't until then that I really got invested in this. So before I do ask you who you think should win, there have been a lot of people that have sort of been criticizing, not a lot of people, but there's a few that have been criticizing CM Punk's run on AEW. Basically, the fact that he's not necessarily in all of these, big matches, kind of the way Bryan Danielson is. So with that being said, what have your thoughts been on CM Punk's run in AEW thus far?
I want to hold off on judgment because I think where they could be going might have necessitated what they did, where it's just happy-go-lucky Punk, which isn't what anyone thinks of with Punk. And that's where, now that there's this confrontation with Eddie, and I think the real appeal to this is that, and I don't know if it's Tony or them or probably all of them, I do not feel like they're trying to push me in one direction or the other. I don't feel like they're trying to make me a Punk fan or make me an Eddie Kingston fan. It's like these two guys out here. And I think this program is allowing us to start to get the Punk that we liked. The guy that is a little bit of an attitude and a little bit of a miserable prick at times.
Yeah.
It's like, that's part of Punk's edge. And I think if he tried to just come back and be that initially, it wouldn't ring as true. Because
I agree.
That amazing welcome in Chicago, it's like, how can the dude not be happy?
Exactly.
And I think by allowing this period of time for Punk to be happy and us feel, hey, but it's like the honeymoon's going to be over eventually. And it's like Eddie's the end of the honeymoon. And it's not just, hey, come on out, we all just love you, go stage dive into the crowd, Punk. It's like, you got to fight for a living and people are going to put you in your place. And it's like, don't you remember what pro wrestling is? It's a dog fight, both in the back and in the front. And I think that may have been an important part of this story, that we have to remind Punk of the other side of pro wrestling that isn't just fun.
Yeah, that's exactly what I like too. And as you mentioned that right now, I started thinking back to that promo where Eddie Kingston essentially tells CM Punk, like, hey, there's a lot of people in the locker room that aren't afraid, that are, don't want to tell you that they're not big fans of you. Something like that he touched on. And it was one of those things where when you were talking about this, it immediately reminded me of that. And it's true. Like, I love seeing CM Punk come out and have all of this happy moments and all of that good stuff. But I do love, this CM Punk that's also a badass in his own right. And I think that's the interesting story that we're seeing here with, I mentioned right at the top is that Eddie Kingston and CM Punk are two guys that are both, fan favorites and are both loved by the people. That I think it also kind of makes the story much more interesting, because in life, you don't always have, black and white options. You don't always have, either or, this or that. You have some in between. And I feel that, having two guys that people like, I think that that's making the story feel even more grander. But so now that brings me to my, did you want to add something?
Well, I was just going to say it's, and I think that's the appeal of this segment. It's two guys that we like acting unlikable, and we're allowed to think any way we want about it. There isn't that agenda, in my opinion. It's like we have to decide who we're siding with and who we're getting behind, even though the two people we like are acting in an unlikable fashion.
So with that being said, who do you think should win, Eddie Kingston or CM Punk?
I'm going with Punk. Just that I think with his big return and the hopes and plans that I assume Tony has for him, his first loss should be further down the road, where this isn't Eddie's first loss. And again, I think Eddie's appeal isn't his win-loss record.
Right.
So I think he can take one better than Punk can. So
right.
I would go with Punk.
I would go with CM Punk all the way too. I think it's too soon for him to lose. And I think he needs this win maybe just a little bit more than Eddie Kingston does. So I got to go with CM Punk as well. But now let's go ahead and hop into our next match that we got here. We got 3 more matches to talk about. So next up, let's talk about the finals of the AEW World Title Eliminator Tournament. And that is Miro versus Bryan Danielson. So thoughts so far, Lance, on the tournament itself? How have you been digging it? And obviously, who do you think is going to win here?
Boy, this is a tough one for me as far as who's going to win. I've enjoyed the tournament. I'm a gigantic Bryan Danielson fan. He's given us great matches, and I'm a big fan of Miro. I did not like video game Miro at all, but I am a gigantic fan of the Redeemer. But this is this is a tough one for me. Like, I really have no idea, in that, again, all of this is predicated on the fact of where I think the main event is going, but I don't think with a brand new babyface world champion, you want to risk putting him in the ring with someone as popular as Bryan Danielson. And Miro would be a tremendous challenger for, popping a Dynamite or a Rampage or your first TNT special, because he's fantastic, and again would be a tremendous foil for Hangman. But then it's like we say with Punk, it's Danielson's first loss. Feels too soon for that, and again, I'm going to contradict my when in doubt, protect your baby face. I think Bryan Danielson is damn near Teflon. And I'm also going to hedge my bet under the premise that I know Bryan Danielson, and I know he is very giving, and he also believes that he's Teflon and has the ability to raise himself again, no matter what. So I think Danielson could pull for it, like in the back, be persuading to go in, no, let's give this one to Miro. I'll be fine. And so I'm going to pick Miro. I am in no way, shape, or form confident in that pick, but I do believe it's a heads you win, tails you win situation, because Miro can, again, spiral into frustration that he still hasn't gotten a run in by his dog. He still hasn't, satisfied his wife and his God yet. So you can further Miro's story, and Danielson can always get over it, but I'm picking Miro, and I'm just going to shut up and leave it at that. That's my choice.
See, Lance, I thought this one was an easy one. And now that you mentioned all of this, I'm like, oh man, maybe I wasn't necessarily, I was fully convinced it's going to be Bryan Danielson. Like 100%, I was like, it's Bryan Danielson. I'm just expecting a good match, but it's going to be Bryan Danielson. But now that you mentioned all of this, I'm thinking, oh man, maybe I was wrong here. I don't know. Personally, like story-wise, you've been having Miro come out every week, and he's been doing these promos that have been absolutely nuts, and in terms of they're really good, right? And he's had these one-liners where he's talking about his wife and how she doesn't love him anymore because, he lost a TNT championship and he's lonely. So in that sense, in the story world, I'm thinking, well, you know what? I feel bad for Miro, and I feel like he needs this because the poor man needs to be loved. So in that sense, I'm thinking Miro might need this a little bit more than Bryan Danielson. And obviously that's just, a joke. That's the story that they're going with. But honestly, I think it is way too soon to have Bryan Danielson lose, but you're right in the sense that it won't hurt Bryan Danielson maybe as much as it would hurt Miro. So I feel more confused now, but I'm gonna go with Bryan Danielson. I just think that he is the person that should be winning this match because he has been on a roll, and we kind of know that Miro wasn't supposed to be in this position. He obviously came in, filled in on all of that. So I feel like it has to be Bryan Danielson. I'm sold on that.
So you're not aware of the old school booking mentality?
Well, yeah, I know that too. Go with the the surprise.
When you put in the
substitution,
you make it feel like a big deal by having him actually come out. And I think too, and this is where it'll be the last I say on Miro, but his whole presentation to this point is getting back to a championship. To me, there's still that other stage and those tremendous promos that he's going to have to kill the cowboy to fulfill his destiny as champion. Having that journey end one stage too soon would disappoint me.
True, true. Well, we'll see what happens here. I feel like this is the one where we're a little torn here, not really too sure what direction they're going to go in. So we'll find out shortly. Before we move on, because we got 2 more matches to talk about, I do want to go ahead and let you all know that do not forget that Sunday I will be live super early in the morning because I got to check out of my hotel really early. I will be in Minneapolis for AEW Full Gear. I will be attending the media scrum, so I will be posting all of that coverage on Twitter and on YouTube. The following day, I will be live to do my post AEW Full Gear post show. So make sure you guys tune into that. If you've been enjoying this prediction show, also make sure to let me know. You can tweet me at _ Denise Salcedo, and you can tweet Lance at Lance Storm. So make sure you guys do that as well. But now let's go ahead and jump into we got 2 more matches to talk about. And the next one that we have is the AEW Women's Championship match. And that is obviously Ty Conti challenging Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, for the AEW Women's Championship. Lance, I'm a big Ty Conti fan, but I just don't think that she's going to be defeating Britt Baker here. What are your thoughts? Are you as confident, or do you have a different idea?
First thing I want to take exception with you over is it is the Women's World Championship.
What did I say?
You just said it was the Women's Championship, and it's something that bothers me.
I was like, what did I say?
But being world champion means something.
Yes.
She's
Yes,
not just the champion of a bunch of women. She's the world
Yes.
champion. And it's something that I argued for and bitched and complained about in WWE before, that being the Raw Women's Champions, okay, you're the champion of a television show, good for you. But the fact that AEW goes out of their way to promote Britt Baker as the Women's World Champion, I think carries weight and it means more. And I think we should all remind everybody that she's a world champion, and the 2 matches left on this pay-per-view are the 2 world titles.
Exactly.
And I do agree with you, though. To me, Britt is the cornerstone, the what's the word I'm looking, I don't want to say headliner, that's just been used too much, but she is the top-notch cornerstone of the women's division, as a wrestler and just a star and a character and a personality. I think, and I thought it was very, very clear on Wednesday that Rosa is closer to that peak than Ty is right now. So I fully believe, and I would book Britt to retain, because I think there is money in the Thunder Rosa program. And because I'm a gigantic Serena Deeb fan, I would really like to see, granted Deeb's a heel, but that doesn't matter. I would like to see Serena and Britt too before they crown a different champion, whoever that may be.
Yeah, and I kind of think that Ty Conti is kind of in, we were talking earlier about how, Darby going into that match with CM Punk was already a win for him. I kind of feel the exact same way with Ty Conti, because she has really, and Tony Khan was actually talking about this in the media call, where he basically said, Ty Conti is literally one of the most improved wrestlers that he's seen, this year. And I do think that she's got to get some credit for that, because she has improved drastically and she's gotten over with the people, is extremely likable, and is a really good baby face, obviously opposing your heel with Britt Baker. So I love Ty Conti, and I know that, down the road she probably will be champion, but I just think that right now, like you mentioned, the cornerstone of the AEW women's division is Britt Baker. So, and the money really is with Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa. And that's, bound to happen down the line. And I want it to be for the championship. So it definitely does make sense to have Britt Baker retain. But I think that already going into this match, Ty Conti is only going to be more over and have more credibility than she did even before this match.
Yeah, I think if they get time and actually manage to produce a real top-notch match, I think that is a big step up for Ty Conti. She's gotten over with the fans. Her matches have not been super long. She's been in tags and so forth. So I think having that legit big-time singles match is enough of a step forward for her. And I'm also not in favor of everyone that does well, we just immediately put on a title because you need to be rewarded for it. It's like, it's your job to be good. It's your job to improve. No, but it is.
Yeah,
and
no, it is.
I think fans are too quick with, oh, you deserve this, you deserve that. It's like, no, she deserves a paycheck and she deserves respect, but the rest is what's best for the company. and not everyone has to get a world title run, and they sure don't need it the first week they show improvement. Again, she's young, she has more room to improve, and if she circles back and eventually gets that run, then good for her. But right now, like you say, there's money in Britt and Rosa, which I think is bigger than where you would go if Ty were to win this. So I would absolutely keep it on Britt.
100%. Now we are going to go ahead and move on to our final match, the main event of the night. But before we do, friendly reminder, if you're here on the stream, whether you're watching on Twitch, whether you're watching on YouTube, or listening to the audio version of this, I do want to remind you all not to forget to head on over to YouTube, search up F4W Online, and please make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We have well surpassed 80,000 subscribers, but we are on our way to 100,000. We definitely want to get there soon. So if you haven't subscribed, please make sure you make a mental note to come over and subscribe to the YouTube channel. But now it is time to get into our main event match, and it is for the AEW World Championship. Kenny Omega defending his belt against the Cowboy, Hangman Adam Page. Lance, do you think that there is a possibility that we might not see Hangman Page walk out as champion?
I think there's always a possibility, but this one's getting really, really small.
Yeah.
I 100% believe it's time. I think the strength of the promo and angle last night, and just the support that Hangman Page has gotten, I think this is time. I think it would be a huge letdown ending to this pay-per-view, and not just a heat. Like, I think it would be fans legitimately dissatisfied, not leaving with, oh, that bastard, leaving with okay, no, I didn't enjoy this show because of that. Like, to me, this is a must pull the trigger moment. So I think there is less than 1% chance Kenny retains, but again, it is wrestling, there's always the chance. But Page has been great in this. The angle's been good in this. I think it's time for the Cowboy to ride, shall we say.
It definitely is time. And I know you kind of touched on this a little briefly just now, but just to go in a little bit more in depth, how did you feel about that contract signing, with Kenny Omega signing the contract in blood, with Hangman Page bringing up the line about "you weren't proud of me, you were just afraid of me," Don Callis being the cameraman? How did you feel about the contract signing in general?
I liked it. And I like that AEW doesn't do too many of them. And to me, the strength of the segment was Hangman's promo. And the babyface challenger for the world title needs to hit a home run promo on that show. And I think he did. Kenny didn't need to cut the home run promo. Don Callis didn't need to cut a home run promo. The babyface did. He's the guy we're investing in. We're the guy that we have to buy a show on Saturday, God damn it, to see this guy win the world championship finally. And I think he cut that promo. And then the surprise attack of Don Callis. I loved the line about the greatest thing the devil ever did is convince you he wasn't real. And it's like, Don Callis disappeared for 6 weeks and made you forget he existed. And then the devil came back and managed to bust open Hangman Page, and Kenny signing it in his blood was a nice touch. I'm not entirely sure why Don Callis needed a fake mustache and beard under a COVID mask, but hey, I guess you need to play it safe.
That's so funny. I didn't even think about that. Like, why do you need the mustache and everything if you got the COVID mask? That's actually pretty hilarious.
I assume it was a case of he didn't realize the cameraman wore them. So he wanted to do the disguise, went to the makeup table, got his disguise on. And before he went out, whoever he was replacing went, "Yeah, we wear COVID masks, dude. You got to put one on."
That's
and it was
probably
also
true.
It was also a great throwback in that, not to make his head even bigger, but he was before his time when he was doing commentary with New Japan Pro Wrestling, like what, 3-4 years ago? He had Black Mask Nation when he wore the black surgical masks 2 years before COVID.
Wow.
And he brought back the Black Mask Nation and dummied the poor Hangman. So I think it's time for the Cowboy, and I'm looking forward to it.
I definitely agree with you. It has to be Adam Page at this point because I feel like this story has been being, it's been going on for a while, which I've loved. This is one of the stories along with Eddie Kingston and CM Punk that just has this legitimacy to it, and you don't have to suspend your disbelief at any point because you are fully enthralled in the story and the promo and the history between both of these two guys and just everything in general. You got somebody who's really over, and then you got this great competitor in Kenny Omega, a great champion in Kenny Omega, and a great potential upcoming possibly champion in Hangman Page. So I think it is pretty exciting, and I know that the place is gonna absolutely erupt when, if and when he does win. But Lance, before we wrap up the show, we do have a super chat that was sent in by Havon the Legend, who actually wants to know what your favorite current wrestling show is, if you would like to answer it.
Well, it's Dynamite. I mentioned this on my show with Brian. I've always, like, even dating back to when I was a fan, I always preferred NWA, WCW to WWE. I liked the more serious sports approach and the colorful, more sports entertainment approach at WWE, which has been great at different times, but I've always preferred the sporting aspect to it. So Dynamite as a presentation hits me better. So we don't get Rampage up here. It's available on TSN streaming, but if I can't set my DVR, I'm not watching it. It's just, I'm sorry, that's the way I am. I don't watch anything live, especially because we've always had the 2-hour time difference that it's on from 6 till 8. It's like I'm eating dinner. I don't watch anything at that time. So I watch my wrestling when I get home from walking my dogs on my DVR. And I like Dynamite. And again, I think too, WWE, Raw and SmackDown are hampered by the fact that I've been watching them for 30 years now. It's nice to have a change of pace, even if whatever is your favorite show, if they're in season 35, it's not as exciting as the new show that's in season 2. It's just the way it is. So Dynamite, I look forward to every Wednesday and unfortunately occasional Saturdays.
I love this. We do got another super chat from Ryan who says, did you talk about Cody Pack, Black Andrade? Yes. So we talked about that. If you missed it, you can always rewind. I know with the show being live right now, it's a little harder to rewind, but you could rewind and watch it. We do go through all of the matches, but that is pretty much it for us here today. Lance, before we go, I just want to say thank you so much for saying yes to doing this show with me. It was very exciting when you said yes and we got all of this going. So I was very happy about that. I had a great time chatting AEW Full Gear with you. Before we go and we officially say goodbye, I do want to I want you to go ahead and plug in anything you'd like to plug in, anything you'd like to promote. Feel free to do so.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to promote. You can follow me on Twitter at Lance Storm, and tomorrow at 24 hours exactly, pretty much right now, I will be doing my weekly show with Brian on the Wrestling Observer YouTube channel thingy. I don't entirely know how. I'm an old school podcast guy still. I'm just an audio guy. But yeah, every Friday I do the show with Brian, and you can follow me at Lance Storm on Twitter. All of my goings on are covered there.
Fantastic. Guys, please make sure to follow Lance. All of the links and everything that you need are in the description box below of this video. Do not forget to give this video a like. Subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on Twitter and/or on Instagram at _Denise Salcedo. Once again, I will be at AEW Full Gear this weekend. I will be posting up the media scrums over on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Denise Salcedo. And additionally, I will be live here Sunday morning to do a post show talking about my experience and the entire event at AEW Full Gear. But until next time, I'm Denise Salcedo. This is Lance Storm, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye, everyone.